Binghamton Now, Thursday morning with Bob Joseph, and we welcome back to the program Michael Vasquez. Good to have you back in the studio.
It's always good to be here with you and your listeners.
Well, even though you are no longer in the running, as we look forward to the June 24th primary, the Republican primary in the 22nd Congressional District, you are actively involved in supporting one of the candidates, a high-profile candidate, the Assemblywoman, Claudia Tenney. And by the way, our listeners should know that Claudia Tenney is likely to be on the program sometime next week, and we look forward to that. Let's talk about some of the issues that the voters who will be going to the polls in I guess it's just about 6 weeks or so, the voters will have to consider when they choose between incumbent Republican Richard Hanna and the Assemblywoman who's challenging him, Claudia Tenney.
Well, it's interesting. I'm glad to be back because when I left the race, I made a promise that I was going to keep active and I was going to keep my voice out there, and I've been doing my best that I can. And the more I've watched what's going on in this race, the more I am so sure that Claudia Tenney is the correct choice. One of the biggest reasons I can say is what came from Mr. Hanna's mouth himself, and that is to check his record, which I've done. And if anyone's been paying attention to anything beyond his 30-second sound bites, I think they're going to agree with me. Most recently, he's been talking about the First Amendment. I found it really interesting because when you look back in the record, as I did, one of the biggest issues, 2012, was the Stop Online Piracy Act. If everyone remembers, that was the day that Wikipedia and Google and Yahoo all shut down their systems because it was about to attack, it was the government trying to take control of the internet.
It was a unified online protest. It was unprecedented.
Unprecedented. And what was not quite as unprecedented was Representative Richard Hanna deciding that he didn't want to take a position. His answer, very much like his answer on Syria at the time, was, I'll look at it. I'll see what's going on. Most recently, he was talking just with your sister station, WIBX, on May 2nd, when he was asked about Benghazi and his position on the ongoing revelation of the news. His answer was, I'll look at the video. That's a quote. That's exactly what he said. He's out of touch. He has no idea what's going on. And that terrifies me. We have an incumbent who is dealing with issues that are affecting all of us actively in this nation, and he has no idea. And his only answer is, oh, I'm listening. Well, that's a great excuse, but it's not an answer.
What's your sense? Is Congressman Hanna just trying to play it safe, trying to not say anything that could potentially aggravate or irritate people who will be going to the polls in a few weeks?
Well, that's actually his history. It's not just for this election. If you look back on his record, as he asked, and I have, he consistently comes out with statements that says, I will look at this, I will debate this, I will hear what's going on. He doesn't actually take a position. With the First Amendment, a great example that I saw real world. He loves to tout the fact that he has an NRA rating. That's fantastic. He loves to say that, well, I'm against the New York SAFE Act, which I oppose. When it actually came to showing up to an event here in Endicott at the Sons of Liberty, I was there. Claudia Tenney came from Albany, debating the budget, drove 2 hours, showed up at the event. Mr. Hanna neither showed up. He didn't even send one of his staff members, and he has an office right here down in Binghamton. Didn't send one of his staff members. He sent a letter, and the letter's contents talked about his NRA rating. And if he wants to dispute that, I have video of the event so people can see it. That's not standing up for the Second Amendment. That's not doing something for the people. That's just politicking. And that's what I'm opposed against. That's what Claudia stands against. And that's why I think it's almost insulting what he's doing in the race, to me.
In terms of what you're hearing from Republicans here in the Binghamton area and perhaps elsewhere in what is a fairly expansive district, the 22nd District, do you have a sense that Hanna should expect trouble as he looks forward to the June 24th primary? Do you find an undercurrent of people, registered Republicans, who are dissatisfied with his record?
Oh, I know there is. I spent a year on the campaign trail before I stepped out. talking to people across the entire district, especially the southern tier. And I know there is a strong current of people who are opposed to his ambivalent positions in Congress, his inconsistency. And I know it's especially true because I'm looking at the scattershot approach he's taking in his advertising and in his attack ads. He doesn't have an issue that he can say, look, I'm standing up and this is what I've done. And instead, he's just attacking anything and everything he can think of and hoping no one looks at his record to actually compare it. And that's interesting because it's very telling. He knows he has a nascent presence in the southern tier. He still doesn't pay attention to us. He never has. And his only way of actually trying to win is to say, I'm the incumbent, and here's a bunch of mud. And I disagree with that.
How is Claudia Tenney different? When we've had a couple of short conversations with Assemblywoman Tenney on this program. I've yet to meet her face to face, but I suspect in a few days we'll have her here in the studio and we'll be able to talk with her at greater length. But you're more familiar with her record than perhaps many people here in Broome and Tioga counties are. How, in your view, is Assemblywoman Tenney different than Congressman Hanna?
Well, I've had quite a few, and the reason why I support her and why I stand so strongly behind her are based on her record and the conversations I've had. She holds many of the positions that I have. Many of my supporters should take a look at this and see. She was the first person to stand up and put a repeal in for the New York SAFE Act. She has consistently voted in the best interest of her constituents, and she's publicly been consistent in what she says and what she votes. When she was voting, the most recent thing we're seeing today is a bunch of the Republicans in the Assembly are coming out and saying, oh my God, I didn't know I was funding the New York's SAFE Act, and I oppose it. Claudia did. She opposed it. She was fighting against it. She was actively paying attention to what's in the bill. And that's the kind of people we need. Someone who's actually read the bill, who's actually understanding what the bill means. I'll give another example of Mr. Hanna on your sister station WIBX on April 4th, when he finally answered my question about giving 160,000 jobs to foreigners. He answered it. He said, I didn't know what was on the bill. Well, and then he went on and proceeded to say, yes, he's going to support giving 160,000 jobs to foreign students. Well, that's kind of interesting because that means the American students sitting right next to those foreigners going for those same STEM jobs are now going to be put out. That means 2 Americans will be put onto welfare or other government assistance while these foreigners get the jobs that they could have. That's what he supports. That's the difference.
One of the things that did come to pass, and you had mentioned this several weeks ago, and I sort of saw it coming, but until the deadline passed, I didn't know for sure. You were pointing out that the Democrats weren't going to have a candidate to run in the 22nd district, and therefore that makes the upcoming Republican primary on June 24th all the more critical.
Yeah, it's like I was saying, I think that was back in March we were talking about it, and I mentioned then, there are no Democrats. They've given up on the people. There is no other way to say it. They gave up on the people. And that makes this June primary the election, which is even more of a reason why Mr. Hanna should accept the invitation you provided to him to debate. And I don't understand why he's dancing around. He won't say he will or will not. He's dancing.
Well, initially, I mean, when the question was posed to him directly, live on the air, his first impulsive reaction was, no way. And then as we discussed it a little bit longer, he kind of left the door open for a possible debate here, a discussion between himself and Assemblywoman Tenney right here on this program to talk about the issues that are important, especially to the people in the southern tier portion of the 22nd district. So I'm hopeful that that can happen sometime in June. But I haven't heard back from Mr. Hanna or his representatives that they are willing to participate in that. Again, we'll work with both Mr. Hanna and Ms. Tenney to find an hour on our program that works for their schedules, because I think personally that it's very important for people throughout the district, to have something more than just, say, a single televised debate, which might happen, or might not, I don't know at this point, but certainly for people right here in the Binghamton area, I think it would be crucial to have this kind of a conversational sort of discussion of issues without necessarily a stopwatch saying, okay, after 1 minute you have to stop, and then, you know, it doesn't have to be that formal, just kind of a discussion between the two candidates so people know precisely where they stand.
I would love for him to do that, but his public statement that he's made to you, to YNN, as far as, you know, to everyone, has been that no, he's will not accept, but he will not deny. What he's doing is delaying. He's trying to find a way to get out of this. He doesn't want it because I believe, he's very sure that if he has to stand up and actually take a position on his record and defend his record, he can't. Because his record is very liberal. He's the third most liberal representative for Republicans in Congress. And they don't match the public, step by step, and he knows this. That's why he's avoiding talking about his actual record.
Well, just to let the record show that our program is open both for a discussion with the two candidates, the two Republican candidates in the June 24th primary, and it's also open to each candidate individually. So I don't want anyone to think that Claudia Tenney will wind up with more airtime on this program just because she wants to. If Richard Hanna wants to come on the program in the studio anytime, he also, because we're going to be balanced with this. Everybody is afforded an equal opportunity to be on this program, because I think the greater discussion of all the issues, the better the electorate will be served. And that's why we've extended this opportunity even for the candidates for governor. We've got the famous 30-second guarantee where Andrew Cuomo could call in or stop by our studio, and it's my commitment, as long as we're not in the middle of a news break, he'll be on the air in 30 seconds. What station has ever offered a 30-second guarantee to the two major candidates for governor? I think it's totally unprecedented.
No, you've been fantastic. You have always been fair about giving people the opportunity to voice their views and to let the voters, let the listeners find out about that and make their own decision. And that's what our government's supposed to be about. It's not about incumbents who are there forever because they were elected once. It's not a lifetime position. You have to earn it. And you've done a great service to people in making sure that people are aware of what we're being offered in each of these elections, on the candidate and on the incumbent level. I thank you for that.
And Michael Vasquez, thank you for joining us in the studio today.
Thank you.
It's 10:28.